Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. Truckee is frightened and concerned. That was the report back from Teri Dean, a patron of this channel who went to Truckee. She lives in the area and she went there, spoke to a few people, shot some video, took some photos, and got an overall sense of what it is like on the ground in the area. And although she didn't find anything, Teri does sketch a very poignant portrait of what happens to a community when something like this happens. A close-knit community, the fabric of that community is actually, to some extent, frayed and sometimes even torn. And so what this does is it just weakens some of the bonds that have knitted this community together. And so this is something that Teri Dean saw firsthand. And so I'm going to hand it over to her. She'll be talking for about 8 minutes, just taking us through her observations, and we'll have some of her video and footage in the segment that follows. So thanks very much, Teri. And before we get to Teri's coverage, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do like, share, leave a comment, and let's get started.
Truckee is 119 miles east of where I live, and all but 1 minute of the drive is highway miles on I-80. It's basically a straight shot, starting at 174-foot elevation and peaking at 7,057 feet at Donner Pass. It's quite a dramatic 2 hours, leaving the scorching valley for the balmy summertime Sierras. I felt that stepping up and taking action to aid the effort to find Kiely was important and necessary to me for different reasons. The last time I went to Truckee, almost exactly 2 years ago, was to escape the unrelenting heat and smoke from wildfires, only to return that night and have my house burned to the ground around me. I dove into Donner Lake that very morning and can still recall the feeling of the cool after-lake skin in the urging breeze. That place healed me before I even knew I needed it. It was time for me to go back. I packed my truck Friday morning with essentials for camping and a day pack for searching. I have decades of experience living in the mountains, and I used to thrive on weekly road trips. Good road tunes are always in order, but not this time. My soul went quiet. I thought about what I would ask when I got there. I ruminated over every theory we have discussed here. I visualized each photo of Kiely. I felt like the boys in Stand By Me on their journey to see the fate of Ray Brower. Arriving at the tree line in the foothills feels like a canvas unfolding around each curve. Gigantic varieties of pines and infinite granite. It's a wonderful feeling entering spaces like this, and although each one has its own personality, Truckee's is especially unique. It's worth mentioning here that there is a very laid-back, flowing vibe throughout the Truckee, North Tahoe area. It's hippie, it's skater, it's snowboarder, it's tourist, and I'm not just talking about the youth. It's a complete lifestyle and attitude that goes far beyond tie-dye clothing. It's a gem of a mountain town in that it hasn't succumbed to the crescendo of capitalism that has rewritten ski towns throughout the Rockies the past several decades. There's also a closeness only felt in places that can be completely shut off from the world in snowstorms. On to the searching. I went to the Truckee Donner Recreation Area first to the staging area. It wasn't nearly as busy as I expected, but many people were driving up or riding up on bikes and grabbing more flyers and reporting in. Parents with young children played in the gated front area of the rec center, in kiddie pools and on playground equipment. Giggles and life and summer happiness shared in the same parking lot as worry and dread. I saw media vans and many teens with truck windows painted #FindKiely. They looked somber. They had camp chairs under trees nearby the family RV and were essentially still hanging out all day, not hiding by any means. I did speak briefly with Sammy. If I ever wondered before how I would be as a journalist, I now know it would not be good. Her eyes stayed fixed on the ground, and she thanked me. My point of contact at the staging center was a park ranger from Southern California. He was helpful in getting me connected to the CalTopo app, but clueless about the area. CalTopo is really neat and served as my guide. It's extremely detailed with dozens and dozens of volunteers tracking their steps in real time. I first drove through the campground and found the campsites that we were told were the center of the party. I wanted to see the area of the one and only photo we'd been provided in the daylight. The area was pristine, large trees, and many open spaces between to park. There were families with young kids camping in those spots, so I didn't linger much so as not to disturb them. They appeared oblivious to current local news, and I wasn't going to be the one to change that. I then chose an area between Prosser Family Campground and Highway 89 that had not been searched, and I did a wide loop. There were a few steep areas, but with it being so close to the campground and searched by other methods, I was basically looking for anything that might have been tossed from a vehicle. I found a few interesting older items, but nothing useful, unfortunately. It's an area that can be crossed off, so that takes one piece of straw out of the haystack. I did see several search and rescue and sheriff vehicles on an offshoot trail and realized after last night's presser that it's probable that's where the dog remains were discovered. I didn't go down to the boat ramp as it had police tape and I would never want to compromise efforts. However, I did speak with Placer County Fire, who were loading up their boats, and they were quite forthcoming that the reservoir bottom is all gravel and sand. They searched every inch of shoreline out to 60 feet. They would maybe still be searching for evidence, but nothing large is in there. At that time, I went back to the rec center as there was a presser/Q&A that evening. I realize that these have been largely disappointing thus far, but I'll just say that seeing it in person was moving and bizarre. The beautiful, ultra-thin youth, the fit older hippies, the mountain bikers, the town crier, twirling toddlers in dusty sundresses, concerned, hard-working lifetime residents, the antsy and defensive law enforcement, and the sparky PR gal. Just a lot going on in one room, and humbling to experience the core of a community with a spear in its heart. One rather vocal resident at the Q&A brought up communities being traumatized by tragedies that have affected nearby areas in recent decades. It was something I had thought about on my drive up there, but I was still shocked when the resident mentioned poly class and the lasting effects of such events have on communities. I had already thought of J.C. Dugard and Michaela Gorecht, and of course Elizabeth Smart. Then how someone like Sherry Papini comes along and undermines the souls of caring communities just blows my mind. Thank you all for lending your valuable time to listen. I'd be more than happy to answer more specific questions if you have them, and I hope to get back up to Truckee tomorrow. I'm open to suggestions. I think that my takeaway is that as passionately as we may feel about the horrible events like this, it's at the town level that it can really be absorbed. Truckee is frightened and concerned. Other current missing persons from the area were discussed at the meeting as well, and there was a general feeling of helplessness. Kiely and her vehicle are out there somewhere, and I have a feeling that they're closer than we think.
We're here to tell you, you will not get arrested. drank, ingested that evening. We just want to break down the military right now. So please ask yourself that question. Is that something you want later on in